Welcome to Talking Grit, a Detroit Lions podcast. Talking Grit is brought to you by the Monroe County Reporters, Monroe's top news source for police, fire, and community events.
Depot Street, truck boy at
Follow them on Facebook, and for $2.99 a month, you can become a subscriber and get the news you crave even faster.
Welcome back to Talking Grit. With me is Jacob Litton. I'm Jason Harwood, and we are going to go through a rite of passage as a Lions fan today. We're going to talk about the top 10 most devastating Lions losses. You think it's a rite of passage, Jacob?
Yes, for sure. I mean, any Lions fan, as soon as they see the title, 10 devastating losses, they're going to be able to think of at least 3 or 4 right off the top of their head. They just stick with you.
Yeah, they do. Especially when we get towards the top of this list, those will be the games that we're still thinking about what if or how'd this happen. But I can tell you that the last season made it so we can make this list and it doesn't hurt maybe as much, I guess. I don't know. We have some redemption this year.
I don't know about that. Guys, this was Jason's idea. He wanted to do this. I wasn't sure. He made me relive each and every one of these painful moments of my life.
Yeah, I did.
And now I have to talk about it. So,
I sat with a pitchfork above you and said, we're doing this. And
yeah.
you said, oh, and I said, yes, you are doing this. And yep, finally came up with the list and we're here. It wasn't the most fun list to come up with, but it is something that as a Lions fan, you've lived through this. And so it's okay to talk about it. It's okay because this year we had some redemption, like I said. So that's good.
For sure. But everyone's going to be able to relate to this. So going to bring back terrible memories for everybody.
Yeah. So the way Jacob and I came up with this list is that we each independently listed our top 10 games. Then we compared our list. 7 of those matched. So that's the top 7 because we figured those would have to be the 7 most important. And then we went through the remaining 6 and we whittled it down. That's 8, 9, and 10 on our list. We only included games that we were fans during the time. So nothing from the 80s or 70s or before because we weren't fans at those times. So we don't have any emotional connection with those games. So these will be games that Jacob and I were diehard Lions fans. They were like a dagger, each one of these for us. If you're wondering why a certain game might not be on this list, either it's before our time or it just was a game that didn't resonate with us as much. Everybody's top 10 list, I think, in this could be different. I think it definitely would include a lot of the same games, but they could be different.
Real quick, just want to add that we are on YouTube now, as well as Twitter. We have Facebook. So any other devastating losses that you guys, if we don't mention and you want to bring up, definitely comment on there. Let us know.
Yep, that would be fun. We also have on Reddit, I made a Talking Grit podcast subreddit, just a kind of a feedback form, just so we can hear directly from you. There's been a few of you that's reached out to me through Reddit, and we've had some discussions. I really enjoy that. I think it's for the betterment of the show that we reach out and talk to you and create this community. So I'm really happy about that. Speaking of this community, the downloads for the podcast have been exceeding Jacob and I's expectations. We're very happy with how everything's going. This is moving faster than what we thought. But I would ask if you've been a fan of this show and another Lions fan, reach out and talk to them and say, hey, there's a really good podcast I'm listening to. That would really help grow this community. I think the more people in this community with better conversations we can have and more things that we're able to accomplish. I appreciate everybody downloading and listening. It means you're probably enjoying it. So I'm really happy with all that. So is there anything you want to add to that, Jacob?
No, I just appreciate their ability to put up with you the same way that I do.
Well, they clearly log in to hear you berate me. So,
right.
Something's going on there,
Mission accomplished. They don't have to look at you. I do.
Yeah, you know what? I don't have to look at you for the next week because now I'm on vacation. You were on vacation for 2 weeks, and now you got me off for a week. Turns. So I know. It's probably our boss is like, I'm tired of hearing all you guys talk about the podcast and Lions.
She had to find some way to get us apart.
All right. I think we got through all the housekeeping stuff. Let's move right into our list. We're going to flip back and forth. Each of us is going to introduce a game. We'll talk about it, add some notes, and go from there. I'm going to start with the number 10 game. This one, Jacob probably really won't have too much to say about just because it's before his Lions fandom started. Mine is 1993 wildcard loss, Detroit versus Green Bay. It happened January 8th, 1994. Throws past the Sterling Sharp. Jacob, he was wide open in the end zone, 55 seconds left. The Lions had led most of that game. He's just wide open. It was like Cam Sutton was out there guarding. He was just wide open, and just dreams were dashed. The Lions had like dominated that game. They had outgained them 410 to 293 yards. They had just beat Green Bay the week before to win the division. So this was the last time they won the division before this, this past season. And so they beat Green Bay. They got to face Green Bay again, and then Brett Favre doing what Brett Favre does. Barry Sanders had been out for a while. He'd been out since Thanksgiving. He wrote 27 rushes for 169, which is the Lions' record. And then Brett Perriman had 10 catches for 150 yards. But it's just the image in my head of Sharp
by himself, right?
Yeah. When the camera scans over, and you just see the receiver by itself and the defender's not even in the screen, something happened. So it was a devastating loss for me. I was a younger fan at that time. It got me used to what being a Lions fan is all about. Just devastating losses.
Nice. I think I was probably watching Rugrats that day.
Yeah, you might have been. You were probably practicing for the podcast. I'm sure you're berating a sibling or something. So... all right, that was number 10. What you got, Jacob?
All right, I'm taking over for number 9. I have the Seahawks beating us. This was back in 2015. This game is most memorable for the Calvin Johnson fumble that was batted out of the end zone. This one, it was early on in the season. It was week 4. We were 0-3 coming into the game. It wasn't like there was really high expectations, but this was a Monday Night Football game. National audience, big time. We're finally on a national stage, and really, it was just a bad game for us. I don't think we didn't really give up too many yards or touchdowns anyway. We didn't score an offensive touchdown the whole game, and the closest we got was right there in the fourth quarter. We're driving at the end of the game. Stafford hits Megatron. He's fighting to get to the end zone. They punch the ball out at the 1, and then this is where the controversy happens. It's the linebacker for the Seahawks, KJ Wright, just sees the ball in front of him, just bats it out the back of the end zone. So now, by rule, because he batted the ball out, we should have gotten the ball back at the 1-yard line, and we would have had timeouts. It would have been 1st and goal for the 1. We had timeouts. We had time. You hope that we would have scored. Who's to say whether we would have got it done? But instead, the refs say it was incidental, that he didn't do it on purpose, so they ruled it a touchback. And then like I said, we had timeouts. We still just couldn't stop them, and then we lose.
It was a Monday night, so it was a late night one. I had fell asleep before that happened.
That surprises nobody listening right now.
The fact that the Lions were 0-3 going into that game, they did not move the ball at all until the last bit right there. It's the first time on this list that the refs screwed us. I have a feeling we're going to be talking about the refs again.
Yeah, there's a theme here.
Yeah. Unfortunately.
This one, too, though, was painful because they talk afterward and the refs are like, it was incidental contact. We didn't really see any kind of illegal bat. Well, then, I don't remember if it was Associated Press or whoever posted the picture, but there's a picture of the ref standing on the goal line, just like direct eye contact to KJ Wright in the ball when he just bats it out the back. And it's one of those things where it's like the ref probably didn't know the rule. We just got screwed. And they said afterward, like, oh, it was the wrong call. Lions should have got the ball back. Means nothing to us after the game's done and over with. Yeah, you got it wrong, but, thanks for acknowledging it. But
yeah, the theme of the refs learning something in the game is, that's always fun. I'm sorry we were wrong. Doesn't really make you feel any better. And,
no.
Obviously this game is like 9 years later and we're still talking about it. So
yes,
we don't feel better about it. Number 8, we're going to talk the Detroit versus Green Bay. Again, apparently that's the only games I'm going to introduce here. It's known as the Matt Flynn game. That was a game that the Packers, their season was already set. They were going to the playoffs. They were 14-1 coming into that game. They decided to start Matt Flynn. The Lions could have increased their playoff positioning, but, they go ahead and let Matt Flynn throw for 480 yards and 6 touchdowns. And it's not like the Lions didn't have a great game either. Stafford had 520 yards and 5 TDs. It's just a terrible, terrible game. But not for Matt Flynn, because he went on to sign next year for the 3 years, $20.5 million from Seattle. So he made a lot of money on that game.
Yeah, that game made him.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, and he's probably living a very comfortable life because of that game right there. Meaningless game for the Packers, but, obviously not for him. But, yeah, it was just another one of those things that, looks like on paper, like, Lions should win this. We could end our long losing streak in Lambeau Field. It could give us good vibes to go in the playoffs, but no. It was, at the time, it was an SOL Lions moment, and they couldn't get over the hump.
Just getting torched by the backup, it does not get worse than that.
No.
He's just carving you up, and like you said, it made him. Then he signs a big contract, and he's exactly who they thought he was, which is not a great quarterback. He had a great game against us, and...
Would you rather have Rodgers torch you?
I don't want to be torched at all, but, I guess exactly. If you're going to be torched, I'd rather it be him. At least you can say, well, it was Aaron Rodgers.
I know. That stat line, unbelievable. So, all right. Let's move off that game. You can give us number 7.
Number 7, I have the Lions versus Falcons. This was in 2017. So this was the game where we thought we won, and it was taken away from us right there at the end. Another sort of deal to do with the refs. This was early in the season. This is week 3. We had made the playoffs the year before. This was one of those seasons where, before recent, anyway, this was what optimism looked like being a Lions fan. So we felt pretty good about the team. We had made the playoffs. We're hoping we're going to take the next step. We started the season off 2-0. It wasn't a great game for us up to that point, but we did. The defense was playing well. Picked off Matt Ryan several times. The big part of this is the drive that happens there at the end, which we actually had a couple things happen to even get us down the field. So Stafford actually chucked 2 deep balls. One of them got intercepted, and they called defensive holding, so we got another chance. He chucks another one deep, and they called pass interference in the end zone. We get the ball at the 1-yard line. We still can't get that 1 yard until it's 3rd and goal. We run a pick play to Golden Tate, catches it, looks like he falls forward in the end zone. Refs call it a touchdown. This is at Ford Field, so everybody's celebrating. Everybody's happy. All scoring plays are reviewed. Look at it and say, actually, defensive back touched him before the goal line. He's not in the end zone. And there was 8 seconds left on the clock. NFL rules say there's a 10-second runoff. The game is over. So you went within, probably 3-4 minutes of real time. We thought we scored the game-winning touchdown. They took the touchdown off the board, and we don't even get another chance.
Yeah, that was the kicker, the 10-second runoff. You're like, all right, we didn't get the touchdown, but we got 4th down. We can do this, and then they do.
You're like, okay, one more chance, and then they're like, by the way, there's a runoff, so it's over.
Yeah, I was in the car listening to this one on the radio, so I heard Dan Miller calling it, and you get ultimate excitement. Golden Tate touchdown!
Yeah.
As we're driving, you can hear Dan Miller's voice change. And he's like, oh, it's going to review. Oh, what's going on here? They're talking for a long time. And then, the devastation of, them 10-second runoff. And just, you had said it right. Both teams were 2-0. We had made the playoffs the year before. The Falcons were a very good team. And we were just looking like, hey, we would have been 3-0, would have had good vibes going in.
Keep the ball rolling.
But I could tell you another reason why this is like a hugely devastating loss. So for the Lions finish 9-7, they don't make the playoffs this season at the end. The Falcons do on a tiebreaker. So because of this game, if it had been called the other way or we'd had another shot or whatever, we could have, maybe flipped that had we beat them. This is what caused Quinn to fire Caldwell because we're not meeting our standards, and we bring in Matt Patricia. So not only did all that happen, it ushered in the terrible Matt Patricia era. And so to me, that's like, maybe this deserved to be a little bit higher just because of that.
Quite the domino effect afterward.
It's one of those things as a Lions fan. Do you remember where you were when you were watching this game?
No, this was just one that I was at home, standing in front of the TV in disbelief.
Yeah.
The highest of the highs and then the lowest of the lows.
All right. Let's move on to number 6, and that's me. So this one is Ravens beat the Lions on September 27, 2021. Justin Tucker kicks the NFL record 66-yard field goal for the win. What else can we say? It would have been Dan Campbell's first win, other than it hitting the crossbar. I mean, that's the thing. It's like, not only did he make it, but he like hit the crossbar and it like bounced up in the air and then goes over.
It bounced
so
the
it's
way
like,
it had to.
yeah, it's like, let's just make the dagger go in even slower. Like, here, he's gonna kick this kick and then it's gonna bounce up and you think you're still gonna win because it's gonna bounce out. Hit the bottom of the crossbar, right? It can't hit that and bounce over. No, it does, and it goes over. And what makes this even worse is that, on that drive, they get sacked twice, they throw an incomplete pass, and it's 4th and 19. So the game should have been over. 4th and 19, right?
Right.
No, 36-yard pass to Sammy Watkins. Then there's like the missed delayed game penalty because they hiked it late. On the Lions side of the field, Justin Tucker lines up and makes this field goal.
Just insanity. Only against us, man.
Now, the guy that's hit the second longest field goal at Ford Field is now on our team. So maybe Bates can kick at 67.
Yeah, break the record. That we can forget about this. This one really hurt. This was another one that was early in the season, but like you said, it would have been Dan Campbell's first win. Because we lost, we had to go through several more losses until week 13 before we finally pulled one out. We were up 16-7 entering the fourth quarter. We had it. It was a pretty good game for us.
I was, I think, with my family at a park when I was watching this on a phone, being a good dad. Everyone else is having fun at a park, and I'm watching the Lions game at the end.
Right.
And
They don't even know.
I'm watching it. And I'm like, they're like, what happened? I'm like, don't even ask me,
Take it out on the kids and everybody.
Yeah.
Don't even talk to me.
Don't talk to dad. Oh, man. Yeah, keep the small animals away from daddy. I'm done talking about this one.
Yeah, right? Well, it only gets worse. So here we go.
That's
We've
right.
got number 5, and this would be the Lions versus Bears in 2010, which is most famous for Calvin Johnson's touchdown catch that wasn't. This was when they started the whole completing the process rule that we got to be the lucky ones and, have to feel the wrath of that first. This one was week 1, beginning of the season. Any season at the beginning of the season, you are cautiously optimistic as a Lions fan just because you're hoping for the best. You're not really, now you're expecting more, but back then you weren't expecting anything. You were just hoping for it.
Any team is, I think that's not just for the Lions. I think any team, you're like, hey, this could be our year. And so, yeah, this being a week 1 game.
We went 0-16, then 2-14. And then here we are week 1. And then Stafford goes down in the first game.
Yeah.
So yeah, weren't really feeling good at that point. We're still in the game late. We get the ball chucked up to Calvin Johnson. Beautiful catch, highlight reel catch, balls in both hands. He moves it over to one hand as he's falling down on the ground in the end zone. He's got both feet down, his knee, probably his butt. He's on the ground. The ball's in one hand. He brings the ball down. The ball hits the ground and kind of bounces loose. He gets up and is celebrating, and they talk about it for a minute and wave it off and say no touchdown. And then that's when they get this review going. They're like, well, the receiver didn't complete the process of the catch, so therefore it's incomplete. And then nobody knows what that means.
Beyond this being a devastating loss for the Lions, is it started the whole process of the catch for the whole NFL. And people got to learn about that. And then every catch was scrutinized for the next decade.
Right.
Whether it's a catch or that's a fumble or, no one knew what a catch was.
I think this and the Dez Bryant are the two, when you think of the whole process of the catch thing, those two plays are what sticks with everybody.
Cowboys fans will definitely say they have their fair share of rough calls against them. We'll beg to differ as we get up on this list. I think what you're saying is right. This was a week 1 game where in Chicago, you get a division road win to start off the season. That's going to make you feel good. And, just start your season off right. Now it just feels like a double dagger. Not only did we not win, but, we should have won. And it's just one of those things as a Lions fan, it does really hurt. Just watching that play over and over again, you cannot tell me that Calvin didn't catch that ball. When the ball come out, he was already celebrating.
Right. He's got the ball. He's in the end zone. I mean, he at that point, what do you mean?
I know. It's like like you said, his butt, his knee, his other hands on the ground, steadying himself. It was a complete catch at that point. And then he just was like so excited. So he's going to celebrate with his teammates. It wasn't like he dropped the ball. He was just, the play was over and he was going to celebrate.
He didn't get knocked out of his hand by the defender or anything like that. It wasn't like an awkward catch that you couldn't tell if he came down with. Like, no.
Yeah.
This dude had that ball.
Right. And it's Calvin Johnson, one of the best wide receivers that the game's ever seen. He had that ball. No, it was terrible. Bears had like 4 turnovers in that game too. We should have won that game. And Sean Hill is the backup that came in because Stafford got hurt. Pretty good backup. It's one of the better ones the Lions have had.
I mean, he actually did a great job. It's just most of our losses, like throughout that season, were by, one score. 3 points, 2 points, 6 points, 8 points, overtime loss, 2 points. Like, we just could not get it done.
That's one thing that Dan Campbell's figured out is this is how you win a game. And those close games, I'm still nervous just because it's football and anything can happen. But I feel a lot more confident late in a game that Dan Campbell's going to get these guys in a position to win. And they're going to feel like they deserve to win. As opposed to during this time period. Number 4 is Cowboys and Lions. But which game? We're going with the most recent one. The one where Decker reported. Brad Allen made a terrible, 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 terrible call. The fact that the NFL stood by him in that game and said, the Lions didn't report properly, when all replays clearly show Decker rubbing his chest, Dan Skipper nowhere near at the time when Decker did that, and then him just reporting, telling the Cowboys, Dan Skipper is eligible, and then the Lions line up would have been a legal formation because of the way they lined up had Dan Skipper been reported eligible. That was just a devastating.
Just terrible.
Had we not just won the division the week before, it could have been even worse. Not to get in the Iffy and Barnes conversation, but say they don't get that interception, and then the Lions lose this game again. It just would have been heading into the possible playoffs with those 2 losses. Who knows what the Vikings would have done, the following week. I'm just so glad that we won the game before.
Right. I mean, it just, like we talked about earlier, sometimes when the refs are like, sorry, our bad, we made a mistake, that means nothing to me. Well, then you kind of have the opposite effect where you kind of know, like, okay, he's probably going to come out and say that, sorry, I made a mistake. No. He's going to say, we said that it was Skipper that reported and that he did everything correct. And, the Lions, we just did it wrong. Well, then you get the video footage and you can see Decker and Penei Sewell out there. You see Decker reporting to him. Skipper doesn't talk to him. They line up in the formation where, Skipper can't run a route anyway. They screwed it up. And I think a lot of the NFL, a lot of other teams realize they screwed it up. And the repercussions for that ref crew is that half of them did not end up working the playoffs.
Yep. Which is good. That should have happened.
Right.
I mean, the Lions have been setting up that play for like a few weeks with Dan Skipper constantly reporting eligible. That was set up beyond, just this game. And the thing is that like they set it up so well that, Brad Allen just assumed Dan Skipper is reporting eligible because he was coming on the field. But I mean, Decker's standing right next to her rubbing his chest because they don't want to make it obvious for the Cowboys to figure it out. And the thing is that like even after the game, the Lions said we had this talk with the referees before the game saying, hey, we're going to try this play. They made the refs aware that this was even a possibility before the game, which makes this even more egregious that, this totally forgot that, Lions had said that we're going to run this play. So.
It seems like we took all the necessary steps to prevent something like this from happening. So the fact that it happened anyway is just terrible. Yes. And, after we scored, because we get the ball, we're driving, you assume we're driving to try to tie the game and go into overtime. As soon as Amon-Ra dives in the end zone, practically, we're ready for another play. The plan the entire time was to do this 2-point and to run this play that we had designed. Mm-hmm. And it worked. It worked. We won the game. They're all celebrating. They're practically back on the sideline before it even cuts to, the refs talking about it and throwing the flag.
Yeah, this was one of those things. Just as we go back to the Falcons game, where you're already celebrating games.
Right.
We hadn't necessarily won at that point because the Cowboys are still going to get the ball back. But you're celebrating that, hey, we had taken the lead. We got a real good shot. And, at that time,
I think they only had 20 seconds or something left, right?
Yeah. I mean, their kickers, Cowboys kicker is pretty good. So, they had timeouts
setting
too,
up
so
another
they had
Justin
a shot.
Tucker game.
Yeah. And I think another thing that makes this game hurt even worse is that shouldn't even got to that point. Barnes should have sacked Dak and
Yes, I was going to mention that too.
And CeeDee Lamb runs wide open, and at the minimum, a 9-point swing, because we're supposed to get 2 points for the safety. They get 7, but then we also would have got the ball back instead of that touchdown. It could possibly have been even bigger swing because we would have got another offensive possession out of it.
Right. Yeah, that one, 3rd and 13. They're deep in their own territory. Great call by Glenn. Barnes blitzes up the middle untouched. And then Dak only kind of just minorly even steps up because he didn't have much room. It just looked like Barnes whiffed on it. Dak kind of tucks for a second like he thinks he's about to be safetied. And then he sprints out to the right. His only option is to chuck it deep to CeeDee Lamb. And then Vildor kind of falls down. And then I know you mentioned it earlier too. It's one of those things where CeeDee Lamb's the only one on the TV screen. And he's already waving like getting ready to celebrate 20 yards away from the end zone.
The Barnes missed safety to me is like almost one of those plays where Barnes is going in and it seems like he's very intentional about where he's hitting Dak so he doesn't get a penalty. And I think when you start playing like that and you're not playing like just out of your head, then I think those plays happen. I think this happens just because you don't want to do anything stupid and hit the quarterback in the head or hit him too low. You got to be careful. If you hit the quarterback any certain way, they're going to call a penalty. So watching that back, that's the only way I could feel like that's what Barnes
Maybe
was
that's
doing.
what he was thinking, right?
I don't know.
Because, it wasn't like Dak put too much of a move on him or anything like that. He kind of just stepped up and we ran right by him.
I really don't know what happened. At least Barnes got his redemption,
right,
3 weeks later and with against Baker.
Live with that forever. The implications afterward for this, though, let's say we hit that 2-point, we win this game. And then going into that last week, then the 49ers can't rest their players because then they still are potentially trying to fight for that 1 seed. So who knows if that would have made a difference. Obviously, we'd still, have to play that game, beat the Vikings like we did, but we could have been seeded differently. Maybe we were the 2 seed, maybe we'd play the Packers again. I don't know that I like that matchup, but
we might not have had the whole Stafford rematch. That might have been out of the window. We might have played someone totally different. Say we don't play Stafford in the playoffs last year, this whole week 1 matchup this year would be crazy because it'd be his first time coming back. But I think you're exactly right. The Lions would have definitely had a shot at the number 2 seed. At the very least, San Francisco would have had to go in and play their players, and they wouldn't have been able to rest them. Whether, I don't know if that's, had overall implications on the playoffs as a whole, but at the very least, you want to make a hard road on your opponents as opposed to an easier road.
They got a longer rest. I just want to point out that you said that I was exactly right. So just want everyone to know that you said that. You can mark that down.
I'm glad I could make you feel good because
I want to thank everyone for voting, on the poll about Barnes versus Iffy because Jason was able to see that he was wrong. Just appreciate that validation.
You like objective data. Yeah, this is not even subjective. It's objective data. Even though it was probably all your family. All your kids voted.
Yes,
even
actually,
the baby.
I made
voted.
Several Twitter accounts so that I could add all those fake votes, so that you could be wrong.
This all makes sense to me now, so that's fine.
Real quick, I just want to point out that after that game, this kept me up for hours, and I mean hours. I'm looking at post-game analysis. I'm looking at Twitter. I'm on like every single channel, everything I can do. Sports Center. I'm getting everyone's opinions. I'm looking at it. It just didn't make sense to me. And I just was in disbelief that it happened. And I just could not even go to sleep. I'm refreshing the feed. I'm looking for Twitter. I'm waiting to see what the players are saying. Because we tried for the 2. We actually had another try after that. They backed us up. We got another turn. Instead of taking the 1, we still went for 2. They got an offsides. So then we get another chance even closer. And we still go for 2. Everyone's kind of crapping on us like, well, you should have just taken the point. It's like, that doesn't matter. We had it. It was ours. It was taken from us.
What you just said made me think of something else. This was like my boy's first time experiences firsthand the Lions losing in this fashion. So it sucked totally. When you're a dad in that situation, I was just like, okay, I can't be swearing at the TV right now. I can't be doing what I would have done in the past. So I'm just sitting there trying to be like, I don't know. I'm trying to be not me, I guess. And that, trying to maintain my cool to show, the boys what it looks like. But it was so hard in that moment. But it was also hard for me as a dad to see the boys go through the devastation of, hey, we won. No, we didn't win.
Yeah.
They're taking it away with this ridiculous,
that brings you flashbacks
call.
from when you were young and it happening to you then.
Yeah. Hopefully for them, my boys are going through some really good years. So,
yeah,
hopefully they're not going to have to experience because
right.
It's not only are these devastating losses, they bunch up, they keep adding on top of each other. And then with no success in the middle, it's not like we could hang our hat on anything up until last year.
Right.
We haven't won the division in 30 years, hadn't won a playoff game in 30 years. So there's at no point is there okay, well, at least we had this season. We did really good. It was just kept being bad stuff on top of bad stuff.
Bad.
Yep. You're on the odds, so you're up. Number 3.
I'm up. Okay. Well, this loss was just a little more painful than the other one. It only happened about a month afterward. This is going to be the NFC Championship game lost to the 49ers last year. It still hurts. I'm trying to get my notes and everything ready so that we can talk about it on the podcast. It stings just as bad as that day. Obviously, the best season that we've had in so long. We've got so much momentum. We have the confidence. People are saying you can't hang with the 49ers. We know that we're ready. We're thinking Super Bowl. There's a real, legitimate chance of a Super Bowl here. And even when the game starts, the first drive, J-Mo takes that ball, 42-yard touchdown run, just electric. Everybody's excited. They end up missing a field goal. We drive it right back down their face again. Demo runs the ball in. We're up 14-0 at the end of the first quarter. We're showing everybody we belong. We're showing everybody that we're for real. Just controlled the first half completely. All us. Everything was going right. Rodrigo had that pick. Gibbs scored the touchdown. But for everything that went right in the first half, the second half starts and it's the exact opposite. Everything goes wrong. Reynolds drops that 4th down pass. Gibbs fumbles on that first play of the drive. We keep going. I think we had 2 3-and-outs maybe. You got the deep ball that Vildor bounces off his face mask and IU catches. Just everything was going wrong. And just, we're in disbelief there. It just was pain. We're ready to book Super Bowl tickets at halftime here. And then it just gets ripped away.
As a Lions fan, I knew not to book the Super Bowl tickets that early, but I was cautiously optimistic at that point, being up 24-7 at halftime. But all season, the Lions struggled in the third quarter. It was just the Achilles heel of this team. The second half of the season, we had gotten better than the first half, but the third quarter was just something we struggle with all year. Just, put the foot down on the throat and just knock this team out. We were up 24-7. That's all it takes is that score. And you're right. Vildor dropping that easy interception. I say easy, but he should have intercepted. That was right in his hands. He's falling backwards.
Yeah, there's contact. And I know they threw a flag. So I don't know if they were going to call that on us or call that on Ayuk. They picked it up because of the catch anyway, though.
We had the argument about the Barnes and Iffy interception. Someone on Reddit on one of our posts, in his mind, Vildor makes this interception, and then that is the most iconic one. So that would have been the third.
Yeah.
I don't think there would have been any argument had he made that interception, and that'd
have been huge. That was still in the third quarter, but still.
Right, but being up 24-7, we take it out, and then we would have just ran the ball down their throats, and then just take
that's
it.
really taking it to them.
Right, and after the Vildor, not only does not intercepting it, it bounces right into Ayuk's hands, gets a 50-yard catch, and then they score. Not only did he not get the interception, it's they get a 54 or whatever 51-yard gain on it. Then they score a touchdown. Okay, we're still up. And then Gibbs fumbles it, and here it goes.
That was the first play of the drive. That was a huge momentum swing.
Right. It was just like bang, bang. And then all of a sudden, you could just see it start to slip away. And we were in the driver's seat. And we mentioned the whole Josh Reynolds, going for it on fourth down the first time. It was a good pass from Jared Goff.
Right.
Josh Reynolds just drops it. The second fourth down, we didn't do very good. But then also Josh Reynolds had like that drop on the third down. It was a crossing route and he was wide open. And, he would have got a pretty good yard game. Plays. I think that was a 3 and out. Then we just, we're giving them the ball right back. I know a lot of people after that game talked about Campbell going for it and fourth down, instead of kicking the field goals. I agree with those decisions. That's what got the Lions there, those Dan Campbell decisions throughout the whole season. So why do different there? Those kicks were not automatic. I mean, Badgley's, he's a decent kicker, but those aren't automatic kicks at that point. Going back, 2 of those, kick 2 field goals, score stayed the same. We won that, or at least we go into overtime and have a shot. But
right.
I stand by it. The only Campbell decision I didn't like is in that fourth quarter when we run it and we get stopped at the goal line and then we basically lose the timeout. So that when the 49ers got the ball back, we didn't have enough timeouts to stop the clock.
Right.
To get the ball back one more time. But
I mean, we had that chance to stop them too late in the game when Purdy, I think it was third down and maybe 3rd and 15 or something like that. Purdy runs for like 20 yards.
Yeah.
That was just a dagger. I mean, we scored again afterward, but still the clock's running and everything. And it just, you can see it slipping away.
Well, it's a momentum shifter too. Anytime you could stop a team, especially when a team gets a very long yard distance and the quarterback runs on you, especially Brock Purdy. It's not like Lamar Jackson where you're just expecting it. It's Brock Purdy and he shouldn't be running on you like that. So it was
not at all.
Before this game, you told me the Lions lose 34-31. I would have been like, okay, we hung with them. We showed that we belong and everything. But it's the fact that we were up so big at halftime is what makes it be on this list.
That's what makes it painful.
What makes it painful? I mean, you're so close to the Super Bowl. Depending on how we do in the future here, say we get to the Super Bowl this year, this may drop down on my list of devastating losses. It may not hurt as much in the future just because we get to the Super Bowl. This is the closest, probably everybody that's listening to this podcast, the closest they've ever seen them get to a championship game. I got to imagine that people that, no one's that was around for the 57 games listening to this podcast. So for all of us that are listening, this was the closest that we'd ever got to being in a championship game. Yeah, it hurts. You're right. Now, when I forced you to do this list, with my pitchfork, like we talked yesterday, this was the hardest one for me to still relive.
Right. Yeah, and I got to watch highlights and stuff of it. Like, oh, God.
Low lights, man. Low lights.
Yeah, right. Man, that would have been cool if we had won that game because, Lions Chiefs, we started off the season with that matchup and then we would have played in the Super Bowl in the first game and last game, same matchup.
Yeah, I think that would have been cool, a cool storyline and just to see how that teams have done now. The way our secondary has been playing, I can't count on the Chiefs dropping so many passes.
Hey, we pressure Mahomes though.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, the Chiefs didn't play a fantastic game. I think based on how the Super Bowl was going, I think we could have beat them.
All right. Are you done? We done reliving this monstrosity?
I'm ready for it to be over with.
All right. Well, it's not getting any better.
Just give us the next one. Put me out of my misery.
Number 2. Hey, have you heard about the Packers on our list? Because they're on it again. It's the Packers and the Lions. This is it. This is the Aaron Rodgers Hail Mary after the stupid Phantom face mask game. Packers beat the Lions 27-23. This is at Ford Field. Lions had led by 20 in that game, 20. And, Packers get one last ditch drive at the end of the game. Devin Taylor's called for a phantom face mask for basically just rubbing his hand across Aaron Rodgers' chest. And Aaron Rodgers, I don't know, he moves his head. It's like
he flung his neck around on purpose to try to sell that. Then he throws his arms up afterward. Like, did you see what this guy just did to me?
Yeah, it's like, I was assaulted. The Packers would have been down on their own 24. Instead, it's moved up to the 39. And, the Lions still line up like they were going to do like a lateral play. And then they just fling it deep. And basically, Richard Rodgers comes in late, boxes everybody out and it just catches it. And the stupid image of Aaron Rodgers running down the field with his helmet off, screaming.
I know. And I just had to watch it again to prepare for this.
Yeah, exactly.
They call it the miracle in Motown. It's like, I'm not calling it that. That was bull crap.
It's not a miracle when the refs make stupid calls against the Lions. That was just part of history.
Right? We had already beat the Packers earlier in the year. We had a losing record at that point. We really needed to win to try to keep any sort of playoff hopes alive. And yeah, they're on their last-ditch effort. We had already blown the lead, but this was it for them. The play before that, they throw and start trying to do the lateral thing. It ends up back in Rodgers' hands when he does that whole flinging and hitting the ground thing. So I think that's probably why the defense lined up. I think we had 2 or 3 people like in the middle of the field, but they almost were like protecting the boundaries too. And it was an untimed down. I don't know why we lined up that way.
Yep.
We made it easier on him. He chucks it deep. There were 3 Lions defenders that were on 3 Packers receivers, but then you've got Richard Rodgers by himself. And he's at like the 4-yard line. He's basically a center fielder tracking this ball. There's nobody else around him until he gets up and jumps. Like, unbelievable. This was a Thursday night game. So I'm watching this whole game downstairs on my living room TV. I've got to work the next day. So we punt it back to them with like 30 seconds left. So when we punt it back, I shut my TV off and turn it on my phone, and I go upstairs to go to bed. Like, once we close this game out, I'm going to go to sleep. And then my wife's asleep next to me, and I'm just in disbelief again, looking at the phone, looking at the replays.
This is before my boys were old enough to enjoy games. So I used, just like you, I'm living this just by myself in isolation going, I cannot believe this happened again. And the fact that it was Aaron Rodgers really just sticks my craw. Everyone listens to this know I despise that man. For you, I think we were talking about this before. This is like the moment that he started to get on your list of like, I really hate this guy.
Yes. Him running down the field and them celebrating like that. I just like, oh my God, can't stand him. Can't stand this team. Like, I hate the Packers.
I hate everyone in our division, but the Packers have a special level of hate.
Yes.
Which I will pass on to my boys. They already, hate the Packers, so it's going to live on. The thing is that like what makes this way up on the list for me wasn't like the implications of like anything that happened in the season. It's the fact that it's played over and over and over again.
Oh, it was play of the year, and it, now every matchup we have with the Packers, every primetime or anything, we've got to continuously see this highlight.
Right. And the highlights like let the phantom face mask part. It's just that throw. It's just the throw and catch. They don't mention anything about, and Rodgers is known for flopping kind of and making things look worse, trying to get roughing the passer penalties and stuff. This is why like those plays should be reviewable. Big plays on their field should be reviewed. Like, was that a catch or, inbounds or touchdown? That penalty cost the Lions the game. Had that not been called, they should be able to review stuff like that. It's clearly not face mask. He ran his hand across his chest. I don't see the argument of why that can't be reviewable. It's not a subjective call. It's clear that he did not grab the face mask at any point. If anything, his thumb may touch the face mask.
His thumb maybe made contact with it, but you can't, that's incidental, and that's, are you going to change it to roughing the passer? No, he's a runner at that point. That doesn't even matter.
The play is clearly caused because it's Aaron Rodgers and he got the call. There's no reason why they shouldn't be. They cost the Lions that game, and, it just is an easy call, but all right. Can you tell I'm worked up?
Still shouldn't have given up the Hail Mary, but the point is that play should have never happened. It should have, the game was over. It was over with. We just like, well, you know what? They didn't get it. Let's give them one more shot.
Jim Nantz is on that call. Phil Simms. Everybody loves Aaron Rodgers except for us Lions fans.
I'm going to need to borrow some of your blood pressure medication before this is over.
Nope, I am not on blood pressure medication. Thank you very much.
Oh, wow. Good job.
I'm hanging in there.
Pacemaker in, or what did they do?
No pacemaker. I'm betting with more kids are going to be on blood pressure medicine before me. I'm going to bet that.
My kids are pretty chill, so I don't know.
I don't know.
We'll see how many more games I can add to this list, and then we'll talk.
At one point in your life, you're going to have a teenage daughter.
That's a long ways away, Jason.
Let's go talk on number 1.
Here we go. We've reached the top of the list. You have to think about this one when you think about devastating losses, so I don't think this comes as a surprise to anybody. But number one on the list is going to be the Cowboys beating us in the playoffs with the pass interference that was called and then taken away. This was just terrible. We had the lead late in the game. It was another one, I guess, similar to what the 49ers game felt like, where you felt like we were playing well. There was a lot of hype about the Cowboys. We were hanging with them. We held our own. We had the lead. Everything was going. I believe it's 3rd and short. We make a throw. Stafford throws the ball to Brandon Pettigrew. It's textbook pass interference. I mean, Hitchens is running after him. He can't catch up to him. He doesn't turn his head. His hands are all over him. He's preventing Pettigrew from getting to the ball. They throw the flag on the field. Classic pass interference. It looks like, yep, that's PI. Good call. We're going to move the ball. We're well on our way to winning this game. The refs get together, start talking about it, and pick up the flag. They just pick up the flag. That wasn't pass interference. They don't bother to really explain anything at the time. They're just like, no, it wasn't pass interference. It's 4th down. On top of that, something that makes it worse is that as they're discussing it with each other, you have Dez Bryant from the Cowboys runs out onto the field. This doesn't have a helmet on or anything. He just runs into the ref's huddle, basically pleading his case on why they should have picked up the flag. And they just kind of push Dez back off to the sideline, and then, yep, it's not pass interference. They should have thrown a flag on him for leaving the bench. Regardless, if they were going to pick that up, we should have got a penalty there, too. It was another one, but this was obviously before the 49ers thing, so felt like we were going to finally get that playoff win. Felt like we had a decent team around. Before I get into the repercussions and afterward, let's just hear your thoughts on it. I'll let you talk for a minute so I can try to calm down.
Time to reload my chamber, and yeah, you calm down. You
Get my noose ready.
Oh, man. Anthony Hitchens is the one that face guarded. And not only that, he held him before the pass even come down. You could see replays where the jersey's just like fully pulled. Matthew Stafford was mic'd up during the game. So they tried to explain to Matthew Stafford during the game that, there was no contact, which there clearly was. Face guarding in itself is not a penalty. He was clearly touching him, and he was just totally oblivious to where the ball was.
He might have been trying to face guard, but he wasn't even close enough to get to him. So he's tugging on his jersey, and he's just all over his hands and everything.
I know. So, say that penalty happens, we get the 1st down, and then they still should have called the penalty on Dez Bryant. That would have been another 15-yard penalty on top of that, because that would have been a dead ball penalty.
Right.
Beyond the pass interference. So they could have called, it would have been a combination. They would have got a pass interference up to that spot, and then they would also got the 15 yards. So they would have been in field goal range at that point already, instead of having to punt. Say they don't throw a flag there, then you're still mad, because you're like, that is clearly pass interference.
Right.
But the fact that they picked up the flag, which never happens, especially in a big game like that. Of course, it's in Dallas. The call went their way, and so that adds to it even more. That was hard. It's another thing. The Lions were up pretty big early in this game. Looked like they were on their way to getting their first playoff win. I remember being super excited. If I remember right, Reggie Bush had a touchdown in this game, and it was going in the Lions' favor. And then, again, stupid call like that. And looking back on it, it was hard for me to watch Stafford just talk on the sideline, because he wanted to tell the refs that this crap keeps happening to us, and you're going to just let it happen. But he didn't say that, but he's just like, this is unbelievable. And he kept saying, congratulations, guys. First time in the NFL history. I was just like, oh my God, it's so hard to listen to. All right, so go about your repercussions.
It's just terrible. I'm still wallowing in it over here. Yeah, after the game, it's one of those things where finally the officials have to talk, or the NFL talks, and it's like, well, the ref that threw the flag, when they got together and talked about it, said that it was a face guard. And then they're like, well, face guard is not a penalty. Like, we can't call it if it's just a face guard if there's not enough contact. And they're like, well, there's minimal contact, so that's why they decided to pick up the flag. Which was wrong. Obviously, the game's over. We lost. We're out. Season's over. We don't care at that point. What really stung, what really hurt, is if you watch that interview when they had Sue come out. After the game, they do that post-game interview with Sue, and he was very emotional, which we're not used to seeing at all. He was very emotional. The quote I've got to hear, he said, we played very, very hard. The defense put it all out there. The team put it all out there. And I just didn't expect this outcome. It's sickening. And that's a perfect way to put it. Felt like we did just about everything right. We did everything that we could. It just ripped away. And then, this ended up being Sue's last game in Detroit. He leaves in free agency.
Say they win this game. Does last season mean as much? I don't know. This would have been a road playoff game. We still would have had the first playoff game at Ford Field, say, history. Just nothing else changed except for the result of this game that we won. This was the game that I felt like someone just ripped the playoff victory from my hands as a Lions fan. I was like, we got it. I was so excited in the first half. And I think the way that happened is why in the NFC Championship game with the 49ers, I was so cautiously, because I've seen this before. We've had a game fully in control, looking good, and then, it just changes on a dime in the second half. There wasn't necessarily a call in the NFC Championship game with the 49ers that flipped it. That's maybe why this is number one over the NFC Championship game.
Had they called, so if Vildor intercepts that ball and then the flag that they threw, if they really called defensive pass interference, then it would have been almost on that level, just reliving it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I guess I hadn't even thought about that. God, no. I'm going to have to go on blood pressure medicine after this podcast. All the trials and tribulations of listening to all this, when we get to the promised land, when we get, as Dan Campbell puts it, the whole enchilada, once we get that, it's going to be worth, just fighting through all that. Of course, I want to win all these games. I wish all these games would have turned out differently. But at the end of the day, when we get the whole thing, it's going to be like, okay, we've weathered the storm and now we're on top. Hopefully it's this year. I like our team. I like what's going to happen.
We're in a great position to compete.
We started out the list moving by pretty quickly, but as we got up on the list, it did get more and more painful. So
yeah,
I want to thank everyone for listening, enduring this list with us. I think this is just something that we all lived through, and that's okay. This is just part of our history, part of the Lions' history. And I'm ready
Jason,
to move
sorry
on.
for bumming you out, and now you just get to carry on the rest of your day. Hopefully you're not listening on your way to work or anything, because now you just have to think about it all day long.
Yeah. So I want to point out that if we've missed any other games, or if there's a game that's just devastating to you for whatever reason, get it off your chest. Go on Twitter and go to our feed and tell us about it. Or if we've just forgotten an obvious one, put it on there. We can all just commiserate together. So, anything you want to add, Jacob?
No, I'm good.
Are you going to be able to sleep tonight? You got to go to work. You've been off work for 2 weeks. You got to get up
my
early
first day
for
back
work.
tomorrow, so hell of a way to send me off.
I know, exactly. I did this. I'm so evil. I'm on vacation, and now you're gonna be.
You
up all
planned
night
this. That's
thinking
why you
about
wanted
this.
to do it tonight, huh?
I know. I'm like, we need to do it tonight. And you're like, but I'm kind of busy. I want to get some sleep. No, Jacob, we're doing this tonight.
We're doing it tonight. You're gonna relive every terrible memory.
That's right.
All football related memories.
You better turn your notifications off because I'm going to be texting you throughout the night too.
They're already off.
Remember
You can't-
the NFC Championship
Notifications from you are always shut off.
games. Yeah, that's good. I know that because you obviously ignore me all the time. So, all right, man. For Jacob, I'm Jason. I know you can't have a good day because you had to listen to this podcast, but I hope the rest of your week goes well. All right, go Lions.